Hey, podcast family, welcome back to the Maxwell Leadership Podcast. This is where we add value to leaders who multiply value to others. I'm Mark Cole, and on today's podcast, John Maxwell is sharing 10 different platitudes and attitudes that can be applied to your life, your family, your business, and truly, I'll be honest with you, in every area of your life. Now, after John's lesson today, my co-host Traci Morrow will join me to talk about how you can put these platitudes and attitudes into play when it comes to your life and your leadership. If you would like to download the bonus resource for this episode or watch this episode on YouTube, please visit maxwellpodcast.com/attitudes. Now, grab your pen, grab your paper. Let's get started. Here is John Maxwell.
Platitudes and attitudes. Let me define what platitudes are, first of all. Platitudes are things I know. They are things that I have found through experience to be true in my life. They are the things that I go to the bank on. They're the things that I stand on. They're the things that sustain me. That's what platitudes are. Attitudes are things that I see. It's a perspective. It's how I feel. It's what I think. And the reason I want to do a lesson on platitudes and attitudes is because what I'm going to share with you can be applied to your life. It can be applied to your family. It can be applied to your business. So let's get going on it, okay? These are going to be all simple. All these are going to be very simple. The first attitude I want to talk to you about is make the call. This is all about decision making. It's amazing to me the people that have opportunity to do well, but sometimes are unable to pull the trigger or make the call. In your notes, here we go. How to make decisions quickly, fairly, and under the gun. Number one, preparation is the backbone of quick decisions. Isn't it interesting that we can make a quick decision if we have been thorough in our preparation? So when I talk about making quick decisions, I'm not talking about just going with the gut or just going with your intuition or just kind of hoping. I'm talking about the fact that you have been preparing in that process. You see, the decision is quick, but not the preparation. Number two, close calls are not as difficult as unexpected calls. And it reminded me what George Foreman one time said. He said, the punch that knocks you out is the one you didn't see coming. Number three, when it's not covered by the rules, use fair play and common sense. In other words, when you're not really sure what the decision should be, ask yourself, does this make sense? And is it fair? Number four, go with your gut. And when you can, ask your crew. Just a wonderful, wonderful kind of concept of not making your decision by yourself, but having a consensus kind of leadership. Number five, be consistent and approachable in your decision making. And then finally, number six, some errors are correctable. Live with those who are not. In other words, those things that you can correct them, but I want you to understand some things you just can't fix. How many of you have ever made a decision in your life that you wish you wouldn't have made? I mean, this is all of us. So there's some good stuff on making decisions, and attitude number one is make the call. Let's go to number two. The second platitude attitude is take the long view. In other words, you got to see the big picture. Herb Kelleher did a nice job on that. Here's what he said. Even during good times, manage and be ready for bad times. So what does the big picture look like? And by the way, before I kind of give you a few descriptive ways of the big picture and what it looks like, what I discovered many years ago is leaders always make decisions, lead based upon not only what is, but what has been and what will be. In other words, they're expansive in their thinking when they lead. So the big picture, here we go, quickly. Big picture sees yesterday, today, and tomorrow. That's very obvious. We don't need to explain that. The big picture realizes that things will change. Of course they will. The big picture considers other people's perspective. The big picture rises above pettiness, displays confidence when others are insecure, prepares today to win tomorrow. Number three, be accessible. It's difficult to receive when your fists are clenched. It's impossible to embrace when your arms are crossed. It's difficult to see when your eyes are closed. It's hard to discover when your mind is made up, and a heart that has sealed itself off from giving has unknowingly sealed itself off from the ability to receive love. Number 4, learn from mistakes. I love this statement in your notes. A mistake is only a failure if you don't learn from it. 3 things people do when making a mistake. Number 1, they resolve that they will never make another. How many of you ever done that? Come on, let's have some honesty here. Well, I've done that. I thought, no, I'll never do that again. No. Now, those that resolve that they'll never make another, that's foolish, okay? The second type of person, when they make mistakes, they let their mistakes make cowards of them. That's fatal. Thirdly, they are secure enough to learn from their mistakes, and that's fruitful. Number 5, keep priorities straight. The 3 R's that have guided my life on priorities. The first R is requirement. What is required of me? What do I have to do? The second R is return. What should I do? And thirdly is reward. What do I like to do? And I've always said, line up your 3 R's. What do I have to do? What should I do? What do I like to do to get your priorities right? Number 6, hire good people. In fact, look for people who can do a better job than you. Executives who do not make the effort to get their people decisions right do more than risk poor performance. They risk losing their organization's respect. Just hiring the right people is so key. If your company's mission is to climb a tree, what would you rather do? Hire a squirrel or train a horse? Says it all, doesn't it? Number 7, give everyone a stake. When I say give everyone a stake, is give everyone an opportunity to put something into the company. Partners and employees who own company stock will care more about the results. Let people put something in. If you put something in, you'll work harder. Okay. Number 8, forget about age. T. Boone Pickens says, give young people a chance. I'm glad people gave me a chance. I really am. When I was 25, I was given an opportunity to have one of the top churches in America as far as size. When I was 35, I was the privilege of being a national speaker. I'm really glad people gave me a chance as a young person. I mean, back then I thought experience was overrated. Now that I'm on this side, I realize it wasn't. But one of the things I'm very grateful for is the people that mentored me and were patient with me. Number 9, look on the bright side. Look on the bright side. Have a positive attitude. An optimist is a person who makes the best of it when he gets the worst of it. One more. An optimist thinks the glass is half full. A pessimist thinks the glass is half empty. The realist knows that if he sticks around either way, he's eventually going to have to wash the glass. I kind of went through these quickly because I wanted to come to number 10. Number 10, have an attitude of gratitude. I want to talk to you about how to have an attitude of gratitude, how to grow your attitude. This is very simple. Number 1, express gratitude as a discipline independent of feelings. Learn to express gratitude whether you feel grateful or not. The difference between winners and whiners is very simple. Whiners want to feel good before they do something. And winners, they do something and then they feel good. And you just learn to express gratitude when you're not even grateful. Number 2, express gratitude for the small and ordinary things. Don't wait for the big stuff, the small stuff, the ordinary stuff. What you appreciate appreciates. Because what happens is we have a spirit of gratitude and we begin to be thankful for something, then we all of a sudden get thankful for something more. And all of a sudden we realize we're just living a life of thankfulness and gratitude. Is that not true? And it's also true in the negative sense. Haven't you found people that nothing can make them happy? And it's one issue, and then it's another issue. It's one person, then it's another person. Well, it's one meeting, and then it's another, and they just get negative. In fact, in your notes, I love this. The more you complain, the less you'll obtain. Number 3, express gratitude, especially in the midst of adversity. When we are grateful, fear disappears and faith appears. Now, the last point is one that I just want to take a moment and talk to you because this is huge to me. Express gratitude toward others in tangible ways. Haven't you known people say, well, I really am thankful. I just have a hard time sharing it. Well, I'm really grateful. I just don't express it well. I would encourage you this week, write a letter to somebody that you need to write a letter to. Email somebody you need to email. Make a phone call to somebody that you want to make a phone call to. And have this attitude of gratitude, because as you have it for one another and you have it for your people downline, they'll have that same gratitude. And this family will not only grow numerically, but will grow in the spirit of gratitude.
Hey, podcast listeners. Many of you listening right now would probably love the autonomy that comes with owning your own business or becoming a coach that helps other businesses succeed. Well, we have a phenomenal strategy where you are 100% in control of your own business, earning income on your own terms, and have access to the people, tools, and resources you need to build a thriving leadership development business. When you become a Maxwell Leadership Certified team member, you join a global community of entrepreneurs led by our expert team of mentors and faculty, including John C. Maxwell. You'll also get one of the top leadership certifications in the world next to your name, giving you the boost you need to get started. Visit us online at maxwellleadership.com/join the team to find out more.
Hey, welcome back. As usual, John truly delivered an incredible lesson today. I'm so thankful for our team that pulled that out. I thought as John was talking, Traci, I thought about the Theodore Roosevelt quote that says, "The only man who never makes a mistake is the one who doesn't do anything." And I think in this whole lesson on attitudes, on platitudes, I think there is an underlying message that says, our perspective, our ability, our mindset to do something powerful and positive is the true difference maker. I know, Traci, you've probably heard John say this. I have many times. When you're hiring a teammate and all things are equal, their experience is equal, their education is equal, their competencies or strengths is equal, you will hire the better attitude every single time. And I always add just an addendum to that and say, you know what? Sometimes I'll take the lesser skilled, the lesser experienced person in exchange for a better attitude too. And so I'm so thankful as a leader that we're getting to dig into this together today. Welcome aboard, Traci.
I am too. And he has left us a lot of things to discuss today. So we need to make track.
That's right. That's the attitude.
That's right. That's exactly right. So in this first one, I feel like making the call, and he dives right into it. So let's do the same. He talks about preparing for a quick decision that I feel like some might leave a little bit like a whiplash. If you see me in the YouTube version, I'm kind of looking left and right quickly, like. It sounds a little confusing, so I would love for you to explain a little bit about how you and John have talked about this and how you have applied this in your leadership, because he talks a little bit about how you prepare for a quick decision, but it almost implies preparing for a decision that you didn't see coming, preparing for something that you don't know is coming. And so that might be confusing to a young leader or to a leader who is trying to hold it all together. What do you think John means by that? How do you prepare for something that you don't see coming?
Well, I love that question, and I think it is in the art of leadership. Just like John says often, when opportunities present themselves, it's too late to prepare, right?
That's right.
And I think it's a little bit along the same line of that concept. When opportunities presents itself, it's too late to prepare. When the problem presents itself, it's too late to prepare. And oftentimes, I think that both opportunities and challenges or problems paralyze a leader rather than activate a leader. Yeah. And I've watched, even in my own leadership, and perhaps this will relate to you, Traci, maybe it'll relate to a lot of our podcast friends. I have allowed way too many times a problem to paralyze me when it was time to activate. And oftentimes, because we believe that there's always an answer, and most of the time there's more than one answer, we wait for the perfect answer. And in that waiting, we lose momentum because the problem gets bigger because there is no action to try to solve the problem. And so when John says that the decision is quick, but not the preparation, what John's really saying when he says that, oftentimes when a problem presents itself, a leader needs to be present and engaged in solving the problem, having conversations, setting course, letting his or her presence be felt. That's really important. But we as leaders oftentimes, when the bigger the problem, the more in recluse we become, the more separated we become. And I think what John is saying, oh, no. You've got to be active. You've got to be involved. You've got to be presenting solutions real time rather than waiting and going and getting the perfect solution to the problem. You know, John, on point number 4 under that, make the call, he said, go with your gut, and when you can, ask your crew. And again, leaders, I want to tell you, I love the concept. In fact, I've tried all of my life, 24 years working with John. I've tried my best to be a team leader, engage the team in challenges. But I've also found the higher the level of leadership that I gain, the more responsibility I have, the more sometimes a leader has to stand alone when making a decision. And we wait for everybody to come back from vacation, or we wait for everybody to get on the same page, or we wait for everybody to feel like that their opinion, their thoughts matter. And a leader allows a problem to become a massive distraction. And so I was compelled during this lesson today to go, Mark, where are you paralyzed in your leadership? And you already have the preparation. You already have 24 years of watching John Maxwell solve problems. And while today's problem might have a unique characteristic, at the end of the day, it's probably a problem that I can parallel action and observation from my past to gain clarity and solution to the current. And I wait too long and I quantify it and I disqualify it and I talk about all the unique challenges of the problem, wait for everybody to agree, when really as a leader, we need to activate. And that's my challenge to you today, listening to this. Make the call, leader. Your team's waiting on you.
Are you ready to elevate your leadership to new heights? Join the movement towards High Road Leadership with John C. Maxwell's latest book. In High Road Leadership, John explores the power of valuing all people, doing the right things for the right reasons, and placing others above personal agendas. Learn how to inspire positive change and bring people together in a world that divides. Order now and receive exclusive bonuses, including a keynote on High Road Leadership by John Maxwell himself and a sneak peek into 3 impactful chapters. Take the first step towards becoming a High Road leader. Visit highroadleadershipbook.com to order your copy today.
I love that. And John will say many times that it's okay. Just get moving, there's traction in action, and getting into that and then massaging it as you go. It doesn't have to be perfect as you get moving and then massage things and work things as you get going, which kind of if we jump down to his number 3, because there's 10, I would love to hit on all of them. We can't, where he talks about being accessible and how I think that's scary for some leaders to be accessible, because if they make themselves accessible, especially if you have a large team, if you're accessible, you're inviting in too many people's opinions and too many. I think if you open the door to that, I think there's a fear or concern that you might be opening the door to gossip or complaining. So how does a leader present as accessible without opening the door to complaining or to gossip?
Yeah, it's so interesting as John was teaching, and I'm so glad you picked this up. I I was humored, and here's why. We're finishing up May. I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. But Q1 of 2023, I made a very unique decision. Because in 24 years, I've traveled so much with John, just extensively. I'm with John. And in the first quarter of 2023, I made the decision, I'm going to be accessible to the team. I'm going to stay home. I'm going to get immersed in the business.
Right.
I've been a traveling CEO, president for 14 years as president and CEO of the company. And I was traveling. I would work late at night. I would find plane time. I would find different moments throughout the day to kind of lead and direct the team and the family. That's just the team and the organization. That's just kind of been my responsibility or how I've done it. In Q1, I came home of 2023 and I did it. And I'm telling you what, 2023 from a work performance and from a personal sense of fulfillment and clarity was one of the most challenging years of my career. And then this year, I've kicked back into travel. I'm traveling so much right now, Traci. In fact, we're recording this podcast at 6 a.m. where Traci is because my travel. I'm getting on a plane again this afternoon. Thank you, Traci. Thank you. Shout out to Traci this morning. But I say all that to say, this year, I have went gangbusters back on traveling. And do you know we just had the best quarter in 2024 Q1, we had the best quarter on record under my leadership of a Q1. The profits were up, the percentages of growth on revenue was up, and I kind of humored. I'm going, well, maybe the organization really needs me to get out of the office. I'm just kind of humored by it, Traci, to be honest with you. But here's what John is saying right here with Be Accessible. Find out where you need to be manning your post and get on the wall and do your job and do your best work. And when you do that, the team seeing you where you are at your best is what John means right here by accessibility. It is what we as leaders need to do in getting work done at the same time, not leading and traveling and moving faster than the team can move. You need to stay connected to your team, but you also need to stay engaged in the responsibilities that only you can do.
Now, let me just ask you to be a little transparent, because you were transparent, but I'm not sure if that was tongue in cheek a little bit. Do you think that was a proper call for you to be home in that season, or were you teasing a little bit and it was just kind of a joke that it was just by chance that it aligned that way, and you traveling just aligned in the way that things are up and running again because of the focus?
It's a yes and no answer, which I hate those because then no one really can land that wants that specific. At the same time, It is a yes and no for all of you listening as well. It was a yes that my team needed my presence more than my plan. They needed my voice more than they needed the vision. They needed me here. Yes. At the same time, we have a unique dynamic in our organization with John Maxwell, the rainmaker, the icon of leadership. And proximity to him is in alignment with my calling, my purpose, and my effectiveness. So when I took an entire quarter off of the road, I lost the dynamic and the uniqueness of mine and John's formula of success. And that's why it led to a very challenging, difficult, and unproductive year. So I would say that in giving all that I had at the end of 2022, I would probably go back and do that again. But at the same time, I never want to do that again. And that's because it took that journey to get the clarity. It goes into failure, the point on number 4, where we're going.
Yes.
It really took the failure and the difficulty of that decision to give me clarity and lessons learned to lead the effectiveness of 2024. So yes and no. No, I should have not tweaked the formula of mine and John's success. Yes, I would have gone through that every time to be and to discover and to lead from the place and the position that we're in right now.
And I appreciate your honesty there, because sometimes you have to let go of something else to spend a little time and attention somewhere else. And then there is a cost to pay. but it was necessary for another portion of what you're doing. So I appreciate that. And it does lead right into number 4. Now saying that, not just in that situation, but in all situations, are you a leader? And speaking to the other leaders on the podcast, is this something that you process alone, mistakes with John to process and extract the lesson? Or do you process alone typically? And then are you someone who is good at letting it go? Or is this something that John has had to work with you to let it go? And if so, what are the things that John says to you in helping you let it go that you can share with our audience to help all of us to let it go?
Yeah, one of the big things that I learned truly in this quarter of 2023 that I'm talking about is that I'm a verbal processor. I have to talk it out. Now, I've said this a little bit on the podcast before, but you need to put yourself into a camp of I am an internal processor or an external processor. You really do. And then you need to tell those around you what you are so that they don't think your processing means expectation, so that they don't believe that your processing is conclusions. And I'll never forget, I remember the meeting that I was in. I remember who pointed out, went, Mark, I have worked on a lot of teams, and here's what I'll tell you, you're a verbal processor. Now, I had people in that same leadership meeting that had worked alongside me forever, and we had never concluded that I'm a verbal processor. So our team and those around me, those closest to me, absolutely is very fair. In fact, on this podcast, a lot of times you guys will hear me verbally process, and I'll go activate after I've had a chance, Traci, to talk with you or Chris Godey or John Maxwell. I need that verbal processing. Others of you, you're an internal processor. You want to conclude it, then go and find out what you're missing after you've all done it yourself. That's just not me. The second thing that I discovered to answer your question, Traci, so I need that John input, like you said, or my inner circle input. The second thing that I discovered last year is how very hard and how very high my expectations are of myself. I'm very hard on myself. In fact, a failure becomes fatal in my life too often. Here's why. Not because the failure is fatal, but because my opinion, my platitude, my attitude of myself becomes a fatal one because I'm so frustrated that I miss something. What I love about that in my life is I take high responsibility and I'm constantly trying to learn how to lead better. That's good. But when I stay in it too long that the lesson does not begin to be applied, it becomes a judgment and it does me no good. And so my reflection, I have to be careful that my reflection leads to a lesson, not to judgment. And I often judge myself way too harshly, therefore miss the lesson that will make me better. And I would imagine that there are many leaders, Traci, that's listening to us today that would go, yep, that's me. I judge myself too hard and therefore can't conclude a good lesson to jump to.
What's funny about that is I feel like that's me too. And how I have been so good to overcome that. And I don't say I'm so good, how I've gotten better at and become really good at it is you have helped me with that. Conversations with you. What's so ironic is like those who can't do, teach.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Exactly.
So you've done a great job at helping me with that, Mark.
Good.
And maybe I'll have to turn around and help you with that. Okay,
Please
so
help.
I want to go to number 5 because I feel like priorities are so critical to so many of the last 5, really. Hiring good people, giving, everybody a stake, forgetting age, looking at the bright side, having a good attitude. That really is all about priorities. Like that, it hinges on priorities. How are you at priorities? Do you have a priority police, like a team that helps you stay on track and with the 3 R's? How are you with your priorities?
Well, thank you for bringing this up, Traci. And I told you right before the lesson, I said there's one place that I feel really prompted today in today's podcast to share, and it's this one. It's this idea of keep your priorities straight. Now, here's why. Because everybody I ever listen to, everybody that ever gives me kind of a affirmation somewhere, either written or when I'm on the road. Hey, I listen to the podcast. They always come back to the year-end podcast of any year. Why? Because we are so diligent in reflecting a previous year and setting the course for the next year. Well, today, if you're listening to this podcast live, and I hope many of you are, and I hope if you're not, that you'll get on a regular pace with us every Wednesday. If you're listening to this live, we have 2 days left till the end of May. Can you believe it? We are 5 months in to 2024. Insane. What that means is we have another 32 days, all of June, to wrap up the first half of 2024. Now, after you get like kind of the breath knocked out of you because I just told you this year's half over, I want you now to slow down and I want to ask you the question, and this is a very penetrating question at its best attempt. How are you doing with the priorities you set at the beginning of this year? How are you doing? Is all the work that you did with that year in review that you heard me clamor about, is that working for you? Or are you coming up short? Have you lost focus? Was the great diligent work of 2023 into 2024 to no avail, or are you on point? The great news that I have is you have 30 days to kind of do a halftime assessment and a halftime adjustment to make sure your priorities are safe. See, what I know is you've had some failures already in 2024. You've had some successes. You had some revelations. You've had some things that you lost focus on. I know that. That's true for me. I know that's true for all of you, but that's okay. 2024 still has 7 months that you can go back and ensure that the revelations of 2024, the beginning, is intact. And I want to challenge you. I want you to take this podcast. I want you to answer the question, are my priorities on point? Have I got a requirement, a return and a reward focus as I look back on the first half of 2024 and I look forward? You can absolutely be successful, but it sometimes takes halftime assessments, halftime adjustments, and halftime actions. And that's what I really want to share with you today on that. Go and spend June and make sure 2024 is as successful as you intended it to be.
I love that. That's so good. And then I know we probably should have cut this in half because it made this a two-parter. But I feel like priorities, which is number 5, really does scoop up all of those next 5. But let's anchor it. Let's anchor it and close out with attitude because it's, after all, it's platitudes and attitudes. But let's end on attitude. And John really hit home with that and drove it home, and having an attitude of gratitude. But let's close out with, what are some tangible ways today? Share maybe some of yours, daily, weekly, quarterly. What are some daily, weekly, quarterly ways that you show gratitude to your people, whether that's in your family, your team, your wife, your family? What does that look like that they can immediately grab handles and immediately apply today?
Hallmark does not sponsor this podcast. If they do, I wouldn't say what I'm getting ready to say. I did something on Mother's Day a couple of weeks ago, and shout out to all of our moms. Ray, you're an incredible mom. Traci, I wish we had time to talk about how you're an even better grandmother. We talked about that a little bit earlier today. But anyway, let me say something. One of the best things I did for Mother's Day a couple of weeks ago is I took one of my cards out. This is the card that says Mark Cole on the front of it that I send out as thank you notes or as appreciation to team members and all that stuff. And I took it out and it's blank on the inside, just blank. And I wrote my wife a Happy Mother's Day card. Now, again, Hallmark, if y'all would sponsor us, I would not suggest this, where we keep buying your wonderful statements and wonderful sayings that I would spend $5 for because they're that good. But the note that I put this year, it required me to reach within myself for what I felt about Stephanie as the mother of our girls and the grandmother of our 4 grandchildren. And when I reached in, through incredible amount of tears, Stephanie looked at me and she said, "Don't ever buy me a card of somebody else's words again." Now, here's what I'm saying. My daughter, Macy, did the exact same thing. She went and got a card. She liked it. And then she saw mine. She went and wrote a note to her mother
Right.
that afternoon, and it was incredible. Today, I wish that you would sit down with a blank sheet of paper. I wish you would think of somebody that you have been impacted by. And I wish with great specificity and with great intentionality that you would write them a note, not send a text, not pick up the phone and make a phone call. I wish you would send them a note from the sentiments of your heart on how powerful their life has been, on how incredible their contribution has been to you, and how grateful you are for what you get to do together. Traci, as we kind of wrap today, we've got available to you a resource that I promise you will help wrap what I just said. And it's called Every Day with Purpose. It's an online course, and this online course has several components to where John helps you with intentionality. It's written off of the book Intentional Living. And John wrote this book and then created an online resource called Every Day with Purpose. And normally it's $199, and I asked Jake and our team, hey, can we make this available for $49 for people that want to take the month of June, get really intentional on being and living out intentionality during June, and let's make the second half of 2024 even better than the first half. It reminds me of our friend from Uganda. By the way, we have several listeners in our podcast in Uganda, and Uganda is the pearl of Africa. And all the rest of you that are from other parts of Africa, because we have a lot of podcast listeners, you're very special too. But Uganda is the pearl of Africa. And Quintero said, thank you for this podcast. My life has never been the same since the day I subscribed to this channel and made listening to this podcast, a part of my daily routine. Now, Quintero was listening to How to Hire the Right People, and that's a podcast that we'll put into the show notes. But Traci, whether it's a platitude or a latitude, I can tell you this right here, watching you lead, watching John Maxwell lead, knowing that our podcast family is leading from a place of great perspective, a place of gratitude, a place of an attitude and a platitude that'll make a difference. You do it well, and we do it together because everyone deserves to be led well.